Tamid and our Shabbat story time. It is so good to see everyone here this week joining us as we celebrate Shabbat this morning, and we're going to sing some songs and tell some stories as we enter into this beautiful morning of Shabbat, this day that is just gorgeous outside. I hope after story time you have some time to spend outside on this beautiful day. But first, let's sing some songs and then tell some stories. Bim, bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Chiri, biri, biri, bim. Bam, bim, 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 bam. Bim, 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 bam. Shabbat Shalom, hey Shabbat Shalom, hey Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom, hey Shabbat Shalom, hey Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, hey Shabbat Shalom, hey Shabbat. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Ma yafeh hayom. Shabbat, Shalom. Ma yafeh hayom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. And because Passover is coming up in just 1 week from tonight is the first Seder, let's sing a Passover song. Ilu hotzi hotzianu hotzianu mi Mitzrayim hotzianu mi Mitzrayim dayenu. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et hashabat, natan lanu et hashabat. Dayenu, 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 Dayenu. Ilu natan lanu et haTorah, natan lanu et haTorah, dayenu, 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 dayenu. Our first story this morning that we're going to read is a Passover story. It's called The Matzah That Papa Brought Home, and it's by Fran Manishkin and illustrated by Ned Bittinger. If I can get to the first page, we can get started. There we go. This is the matzah that Papa brought home. This is the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. This is the Passover Seder we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. This is me standing tall and proud to ask the 4 questions nice and loud during the Passover Seder we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. These are the plagues that we counted, all 10, by dipping our pinkies again and again, after I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud during the Passover Seder we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. This is Dayenu, a very long song that we sang with our stomachs growling along after we counted the plagues all 10 by dipping our pinkies again and again, after I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud during the Passover Seder we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. These are the bitter herbs we dipped after Dayenu, a very long song that we sang with our stomachs growling along after we counted the plagues all 10 by dipping our pinkies again and again, after I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud during the Passover Seder we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. This is the matzah ball soup that we sipped after the bitter herbs that we dipped after Dayenu, a very long song that we sang with our stomachs growling along After we counted the plagues, all 10, by dipping our pinkies again and again. After I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud. During the Passover Seder, we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. This is the afikomen I found by searching the house and running around. After the matzo ball soup that we sipped, after the bitter herbs that we dipped, after Dainu, a very long song that we sang with our stomachs growling along. After we counted the plagues, all 10, by dipping our pinkies again and again. After I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud. During the Passover Seder, we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. This is the door we opened wide, inviting Elijah to step inside. After the afikomen was found, by searching the house and running around. After the matzo ball soup that we sipped, after the bitter herbs that we dipped. After Dainu, a very long song that we sang with our stomachs growling along. After we counted the plagues, all 10, by dipping our pinkies again and again. After I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud. During the Passover Seder, we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. Finally, next year in Jerusalem, we said. Then everyone hugged and went to bed. After the door was opened wide, inviting Elijah to step inside. After the afikomen was found, by searching the house and running around. After the matzo ball soup that we sipped, after the bitter herbs that we dipped. After Dainu, a very long song that we sang with our stomachs growling along. After we counted the plagues, all 10, by dipping our pinkies again and again. After I stood up tall and proud and asked the 4 questions nice and loud. During the Passover Seder, we shared to eat the feast that Mama made with the matzah that Papa brought home. Now the Passover moon shines its beams, bringing the children of Israel sweet dreams. And we will remember the stories and matzahs our mamas and papas brought home. The end. Our next book this morning is called It's Passover, Grover. It's a fun Sesame Street book to get us ready for Passover next week. Grover really liked the Jewish holiday of Passover. He liked that it came in the spring when the weather was warm and the flowers were blooming. He liked that he got to eat lots of matzah. Is matzah not marvelously munchy and crunchy? Asked Grover. He liked hunting for the afikomen, a special piece of matzah when the meal was over. I will explain the nifty hide-and-seek game later, said Grover. Get ready for a good time. He especially liked sitting around a big table with family and friends for the Seder, the holiday meal, and hearing the story of Passover. But how do I know what I like best of all? Grover asked his mommy as they cleaned and cooked together. There is room for everybody at the Passover table. You're right, Grover, said his mommy. That's because of something in the Haggadah, the Passover book we read from at the Seder. Let all who are hungry come and eat. Grover's cousins, Shira and Josh, arrived, followed by Big Bird, Cookie Monster, Oscar, Elmo, and Abby Cadabby. Everyone had a seat at the table. What a group, exclaimed Oscar. It's big and noisy with lots of elbow bumping. Perfect. The more the merrier, agreed Big Bird. You mean the bigger the crowd, the grouchier I get, Oscar corrected him. He tried hard not to smile. The Seder began. Grover's mommy told the story of long ago, when the Jewish people were slaves in the land of Egypt. It was a terrible time, she said. The Egyptian king, called the Pharaoh, was cruel to the people and monsters. He made them work in the hot sun and even at night. Even adorable and furry blue monsters, added Grover. Is that not awful? So what happened? Asked Abby. The Jewish people escaped to freedom, Shira explained. Passover celebrates that freedom. Very exciting story, said Cookie. Now when do we eat? There were blessings to say, questions to ask, songs to sing, and special foods to taste. Elmo loves apples and nuts, said Elmo, reaching for a bowl. That's called charoset, Elmo, said Josh. Whoa, this stuff is great, said Oscar, tasting something super spicy. Those are bitter herbs, Grover told him. They're a reminder of the bitterness of slavery. Grover and his guests ate and ate until they were as big and round as the fluffy matzo balls floating in the chicken soup. Finally, it was time to hunt for the afikomen. Now I will explain this once-a-year Passover hide-and-seek game, said Grover. A piece of crunchy matzah has been wrapped up all tight and cozy in a napkin and hidden in the house. Before we can eat dessert, someone has to find it. No dessert? Exclaimed Cookie. Well, what are we waiting for? No matzah. The friends searched on the bookshelves, under the sofa, and behind the curtains. Cookie Monster looked in the kitchen cabinets. Come to Papa, little matzah. No matzah's there either, though Cookie did find some other yummy-looking treats. Trash cans are good hiding places, suggested Oscar helpfully. Abby even checked under Joss's yarmulke, but the afikoman was nowhere to be seen. If Elmo were an afikoman, said Elmo. Then where would you be, finished Big Bird. Elmo sat down to think. Crunch. There was the hidden matzah. Elmo found it. Elmo found it, Elmo cried. Happy Passover, everyone. So it's time for dessert, Cookie Monster added. Now Passover, really happy. The story of Passover. Every spring for 8 days, Jewish people all over the world celebrate Passover. On the first 2 nights, family and friends gather for a holiday dinner called a Seder. They read and sing from a Passover prayer book called the Haggadah, which tells about the time when the Jews were slaves in the land of Egypt. When the Jewish people finally got their freedom from the Pharaoh, they left in such a rush that they had no time to let their bread rise. That's why flatbread called matzah is eaten during Passover. Many other foods, some bitter, some salty, some sweet, are eaten during the Seder and also celebrate the journey from slavery to freedom. The end. So our final book this morning is an oldie but a goodie, one of my favorites, Where the Wild Things Are. The stories and pictures are by Maurice Sendak. The night Max wore his wolf suit and made mischief of one kind and another, his mother called him Wild Thing, and Max said, I'll eat you up. So he was sent to bed without eating anything. That very night in Max's room, a forest grew and grew and grew until his ceiling hung with vines and the walls became the world all around. And the ocean tumbled by with a private boat for Max, and he sailed off through night and day. And in and out of weeks and almost over a year to where the wild things are. And when he came to the place where the wild things are, they roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. Till Max said, be still, and tamed them with the magic trick of staring into all their yellow eyes without blinking once. And they were frightened and called him the most wild thing of all. And made him king of all the wild kings. And now, cried Max, let the wild rumpus start. Now stop, Max said, and sent the wild things off to bed without their supper. And Max, the king of all the wild things, was lonely and wanted to be where someone loved him best of all. Then all around, from far away across the world, he smelled good things to eat. So he gave up being king of where the wild things are. But the wild things cried, oh, please don't go. We'll eat you up. We love you so. And Max said, no. The wild things roared their terrible roars and gnashed their terrible teeth and rolled their terrible eyes and showed their terrible claws. But Max stepped into his private boat and waved goodbye. And sailed back over a year and in and out of weeks and through a day. And into the night of his very own room, where he found his supper waiting for him. And it was still hot. The end. So I hope you enjoyed our books this morning. Next week, as I said, is the beginning of Passover on Saturday night. We will join together on Saturday morning next week again for another Shabbat story time. But then Saturday night we'll be on Zoom, and you're welcome to join us for our Friday or Saturday night first Seder with all of our friends from CDT, from Dor Tamid. So I hope to see you then. In the meantime, I hope you have a great day, a wonderful Shabbat. And I'll say to you as we go forth to this day, Shabbat Shalom and Shalom Chaverim. Shalom Chaverim, Shalom Chaverim, Shalom, Shalom, Lehitraot, Lehitraot, Shalom, Shalom.